Hey guys, hope you've had a good week. As always, this will be a kind of look at what I've been reading since the last one of these that I made last week and what I hope to be picking up in the next week. Before I get into it, there's a couple things that I wanted to mention real quick. The first is, as always, I wanted to mention a thank you to our Patreon producers. Really grateful to them for pledging to us and supporting us in this way. And our Patreon's actually going to be changing, kind of simplifying very shortly. I'll be talking about that. You'll see some vlogs about that soon enough. But anyway, I also really wanted to mention a very big thank you to those of you who have watched, taken the time to watch any amount of the interview that I posted over the weekend. So over the weekend, I did post an interview with Ada Palmer, who is the author of Two Like the Lightning and Seven Surrenders, both of which I talked about in my last weekly wrap-up, and I also posted full reviews for both of them over the weekend as well. I really loved both of those books, thought they were just fascinating science fiction, and that she is just a fantastic author and just a great person to talk to, great author to talk to. She just has so many great thoughts, a really interesting process, and has a really interesting outlook on the books that she's written, and it was a lot of fun to talk to her and kind of pick her brain for some little tidbits of how she approached certain things in those books, and it was a lot of great fun, and I really appreciate you guys checking that out. Yeah, if you have not, I would really love if you did, because it was, like I said, a lot of fun, and might encourage you to pick up those books, because I think a lot of science fiction lovers would really like them a lot. And if you watched the vlog, you'll have seen that the first time I tried to do that interview, it didn't really quite go so well, not because of the interview. The interview was great, but my audio file didn't capture quite correctly, and we had to do the interview all over again, which was definitely frustrating, but I am really happy with how the interview eventually ended up turning out. I'm really glad that we were able to do it again. Huge thank you to Ada again to giving me the time, giving me more of her time in which to do a second interview. Just fantastic. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching that, because I would really love to do more if you guys keep watching those. Thank you guys also for just watching my reviews if you watch those. Those are like what I am passionate the most about doing, is posting reviews. I know a lot of people generally don't like watching reviews as much as they like watching other kinds of videos, which is still strange to me, but also kind of makes sense, but is also still kind of strange to me. Even though I am going to continue to post them no matter what, because I love doing them. They're what I'm passionate about, like, the most on here. Although there are several little pet projects in the back of my head that I've been planning for a while that I still have not brought to fruition, that I'm also very passionate about, but just have not had the time necessarily put into them yet. Hopefully you'll see those come to light very shortly, though. And yeah, anyway, so thank you guys so much for watching those, and for watching this, and for always supporting me and being wonderful in general. Hopefully you'll see more author interviews as well, because I can see myself getting very passionate about that as well. If you continue to watch those interviews, continue to watch my reviews, it is very likely that I'll be able to grow this channel and keep on doing them. Anyway, on to the wrap-up. I did read and finish, I started and finished 6 books this past week, 3 physical and 3 audio, nice and balanced. And I'll of course go ahead and mark them on here. I believe I am pretty on track with my Goodreads goal. My Goodreads goal is to get to 200. I haven't actually updated my Goodreads in a while. There's like a lot of books. The entire month of March, I have not updated anything. I don't think I updated some of the last ones that I did in February either, but I could be wrong about that. I'm not entirely sure. Totally just added an extra one to that. Whoops. Was not paying attention to what I was doing. I am at 48 for the year, so I believe I'm on track. I don't quite know, because I have not updated my Goodreads in a little bit, but I will do that definitely before the month ends. Anyway, so 40 books for the year so far. It's pretty awesome. I'm very happy about that. The first thing that I finished this past week was this big thing here, New York 2140 by Kim Stanley Robinson. I actually did quite enjoy this a lot. Certain parts of it were sort of hit or miss. It was definitely a lot different than what I was expecting and what Aurora by him was. It did have some similar themes, and I can definitely see how this has similar themes to some of the other things that he's written that I have not gotten to yet, like the Mars trilogy. I've heard some comparisons there. This one definitely has a very heavy focus on the ecological and economical kinds of topics that he's interested in. This is a New York in the not so far future, New York that is flooded. It is flooded as well as a lot of other coastal cities all over the world are flooded. And in this New York, people are still living there. They're living in these skyscrapers and these super scrapers. You can kind of see, this is you can see some of the buildings that we know of already. In this New York, there's like this tall one here is like the new World Trade Center, Freedom Tower, and the Empire State Building is like right there. But then behind those, you can see these gigantic super scrapers. So people are still living in New York City, but they have a slightly different life. All of the streets are basically canals now. It's very much like a Venice kind of situation, and this is actually, they refer to this new New York as a super Venice. And there's like these bridges you can kind of see if you really look at the cover art. The cover art is beautiful. By the way, I love this artist, one of my favorite science fiction artists. And he has drawn these, and Kim Stanley Robinson describes these bridges that go back and forth between some of the buildings. But most people and the characters in this story all live in a building and kind of have their whole lives there. Some people like work outside of their buildings or whatever, or have lives outside of their buildings, sort of. But a lot of their life takes place in this building. They can get all their food there. They don't really have to go anywhere else. Some people have boats in which they kind of trek around New York and the surrounding areas in. And it's a story that follows the characters that all live in this one building. And so we follow a few different stories. One of them, this two friends, these two programmers, coders, that are named Mutt and Jeff, who I believe they figured out a way to kind of upend and change the status quo of the economical system and a lot of other things by just changing these few specific rules that they believe to be inherent in society. And they can kind of program and code their way into this. And so they're actually kidnapped, and you don't really know exactly why at first. They are taken, if it's because of this thing that they're talking about right at the beginning of the book, that's the very first chapter, where they're talking about this thing back and forth. If it's for some other reason, some other thing, and you kind of get to learn more about them. And then there's this other character that's trying to figure out where they went, this inspector character, this really determined woman who's the inspector for this building. And she's trying to figure out what happened to them. At the same time as we follow a bunch of other characters, people that are kind of like certain kinds of overseers of the building. There's this one woman who is trying to figure out who is someone who's just put a bid on the building to try and buy the building. The people that live in this building have this kind of co-op where they all own a certain percentage of the building, and so they all own together collectively the building. But this some outside bidder is trying to get them to sell it, and she's trying to figure out who and stop it from happening. There's this character that's a sort of caretaker for the building that really oversees a lot of things and whom most people know. There's this character who works in stocks and in the system of kind of investing, or I guess more accurately sort of betting in to this index of the current water levels in different areas and stuff like that. And so stocks have changed in a little bit of a way. Obviously, New York being flooded is a kind of punch to that system. And so he works in this new kind of stock market, and he believes he's found a way to really make a lot of money. And he's definitely he's a very self-absorbed and interesting character to read from. All of these characters, all of these different chapters, all have different sort of styles to them. He's got his own very distinct style that Kim Stanley Robinson is writing from to write him. The two programmer characters, coder characters that we start with that get kidnapped have a very specific way of talking to one another and are written in a very specific way, and a lot of the characters are like that. And this economics guy, this financial guy, this stock guy, he's also kind of sort of believing himself to be in love, or what he perceives to be love, for the first time. And there's these two kids who, with the help of this older guy who shouldn't really be living in the place that he's living, in a different building, they are out in the search for this old ship that supposedly has some treasure on it. And there's just a lot of stuff going on. And some of it is a whole lot of fun. Some of it is just very interesting to read about. It is a bit of a slow book. It definitely is not necessarily a fast read, except for unless you find all the stuff that you're reading about to be very, very interesting, which I actually did. And that kind of made it go along speedily enough for me. I very much enjoyed all the characters and reading from their perspectives and seeing what they do and how they all interconnect and how they all work together. There's a lot of stuff going on. It's fun. I'm going to do a full review of this. I've talked about it long enough here, I think, but I will be doing a lot more talking on this very soon in a review. I plan on filming the review hopefully tonight and posting it over the next couple days, so we'll see. The next thing that I finished is The Collapsing Empire by John Scalzi. This is just a whole lot of fun, as you would expect a John Scalzi book to be. This is a science fiction space opera set in a universe that has shown the appearance of this thing called the flow. And people of Earth use the flow once to travel far away from Earth. But now this interdependency, that's what they call themselves, the interdependency, this big collection of human habitats is cut off from Earth, but they have this trade agreement and kind of social agreement amongst one another to be interdependent towards each other. So they all can't exist without the rest of them. That's how the system has been set up. It's kind of an odd system, and you kind of wonder why they set it up this way, but you kind of understand why as you go along. And the flow, something is happening to the flow. It's changing right at the beginning. We get this chapter, this prologue of a ship that you get to see some space pirates, and then something weird happens to the ship with the flow, and now everyone is kind of hearing rumors of this change happening, while at the same time lots of political stuff is happening back and forth between these two different habitats. This one called Hub, which is the hub of all of this life. It's the biggest habitat. It runs everything. There's this Emperox. That's how I pronounce it, Emperox. It's Emperor, Empress, I guess, but without the gender connotations, because it can be either gender, which is one of the main characters we read from. The new Emperox, she is kind of inheriting this system, doesn't really understand the purpose of it, and now she has to deal with the flow changing and all these sorts of families that are trying to influence her and influence different things on different habitats. There's one habitat called the End. It's an actual planet like Earth was. It's like the only one like that besides Earth, and now they're cut off from Earth, so it's basically the only actually planet-like habitat. And End is where the flow ends, is where they send a lot of troublemakers. And this one family has a presence there and at the hub, and there's lots of political stuff going on. Like I said, there's just a lot of stuff happening in this universe that is all kind of coalescing it to a very dangerous point. And it's a lot of fun to read about, and typical John Scalzi kind of humor-focused kind of characters and some situations. But I was actually surprised at how much political stuff is happening in this, and I found it all very interesting. And I feel like he's done a good job of setting up some interesting systems here that'll be fun to read about in the upcoming books. I'm also going to do a full review of this. I'm hoping to post a review of this in the next couple of days. As with New York 2140, I'm going to try to record it tonight and hopefully get it up as soon as possible. So, and then I tried to get into and start reading Amberlow by Lara Alina Donnelly, and I got a little bit into it and just, it wasn't for me. I don't know. I couldn't get into any of the characters or the story. I just didn't really like it very much, and I didn't like it, so I decided to stop reading it. Because I've been so overwhelmed and having such a hard time finding the time to read the things that I want to read, and I feel so behind on a lot of stuff that I want to read, that I was thinking to myself, like, I can't sit and focus on a book that I'm not wanting to pick up, that I'm not really enjoying all that much. I'm sure there are plenty of people out there that would enjoy this. I've heard some good things about it from other people. So I'd definitely go and check it out for yourself, whether or not it be something for you. I just had a hard time getting into it and realized that it was keeping me from reading stuff that I did really want to spend the time on. And so put it down. Maybe I'll come back to it. I don't know. I do feel kind of bad because the publicist specifically was like, oh, do you want to try this one? And I was like, oh yeah, sure, I'll try it. And I did try it. It wasn't necessarily my thing. I think there are a lot of people out there who would like it. And like I said, I'll maybe try to give it another shot when things have kind of died down a little bit, when I'm a little less overwhelmed. I'm going to get to that point soon, hopefully. I'm trying to. It'll help if I do put down books like this, where I'm just like, okay, I can't do this right now. I'm going to move on and come back to it later, maybe, and we'll see what I think of it then. But for now, I should move on to something that I actually feel like reading. This next one, though, it was kind of the same thing. But I decided this one was going by so fast and was so easy to read and short that I decided to just go through it and finish it. And that is Neil Gaiman's newest book, Norse Mythology. This one, I thought it was fine. It was all right. I like a lot of other people, I find Norse mythology to be really interesting, for sure. And he definitely presents it in a pretty interesting way. Although I don't feel like I got anything new from it necessarily. I don't feel like he told the stories in any particular way or style that really felt too engaging to me at all. It felt very mythological in that sense, that it's all very sort of nonsensical, whimsical, choppy stories that are just these kind of random happenings, events that happen one after the other that lead to some sort of conclusion. and they're very short stories, so they're easy to get through. And I definitely enjoyed seeing some more Norse stories, but I didn't necessarily feel like it was in any way a sort of add-on having him write it. I don't know. I didn't feel that much for it. Other than that, it was a nice, quick read. It was perfectly fine. And if you do have an interest in Norse mythology, I would definitely say give it a shot. It definitely has a good collection of some of the stories. And there are definitely some that I didn't know about. I mean, I don't know that much about Norse mythology. I know enough. I know some bits and pieces. And this definitely expanded on that knowledge, and I definitely am grateful for that. But overall, it wasn't necessarily anything special. And I don't know. I'm going to do a full review. I do have more to say on it. I don't want to talk about it too much right now. I'll probably post a pretty short full review sometime this weekend. I'll spend some time on trying to post a review for it. So we'll see how that goes. So as for audiobooks that I finished this past week, all the audiobooks that I finished were from the same series. They're the first 3 books in, well, actually, I guess the 3 books in this trilogy, except for there's a 4th book now. I'll get to that more in a second. It was a trilogy before, and it's called the Newsflash Trilogy by Myra Grant. The first book is called Feed. The second book is called Deadline, and the third book is called Blackout. So I read all the first 3 in this, except for there's a 4th book now. I'll probably read that this upcoming week, but like I said, I'll talk about them more in a second. The first 3 books all go together as a trilogy and set up this world in which there was a cure made for the common cold and a cure made for cancer that kind of merged into this weird super virus kind of thing that infected people and made itself dormant in all humans, and newborn humans, newborn babies, all had this thing lay dormant in them. So at any point, if they are exposed to one of the people who are already infected, they can then be turned into infected as well. It can reanimate dead bodies and make people come back from the dead, basically make them zombies. And so it's like a mix between an infected story and a zombie story. And we follow in this world these 2 characters, this brother and this sister called Georgia and Sean, and they are both bloggers, and they kind of write about their experiences and make videos about their experiences. And this is a world that it's definitely changed since this happened, but it's not been completely upended. There's not a complete upheaval of everything that we've ever known. There's still electricity. Lives are still kind of going on a day-to-day basis. There's still people living sort of normal lives, but there's still internet. There's still people making these sorts of videos and blogs, and there are a lot of people that are very into doing this. And our 2 main characters, Sean and Georgia, this brother and sister, they're not really brother and sister, they're adopted by these 2 parents who are very self-absorbed and conceited and kind of like internet celebrities or wannabe internet celebrities. And Sean and George themselves are sort of internet celebrities. They are forerunners and at the forefront of this new kind of wave of media. They're very, very into telling the truth and being very truthful side of the news. There's this whole wave of people their age, kind of like late teens, that are working out there trying to capture the news in a very realistic way, and also just going out there to experience the dangers of being around these infected and zombies. Sean is one of these. They call themselves Irwins, like Steve Irwin, because they are very into danger, which is funny, I suppose, in a sort of twisted way. These Irwins, there's the Newsies and the Irwins and some other variations of people who are really interested in doing this blogging, this sort of new media news kind of thing. It's all based around the internet. There's a lot of young people doing it, and George and Sean have kind of created this company, this series of blogs that they have kind of hired people all around the world to write for, called After the End Times. And so you see little snippets from their blogs, but you also get to see their sort of adventures and what they've gotten themselves into. They are hired by in the first book, they're hired by a political candidate to kind of follow him around and report on his campaign trail very honestly and openly, to kind of be the first candidate that's really opened that with welcome arms, which is really what Sean and Georgia are looking for. Georgia especially is very into telling the whole truth, the exact truth. There's no gray. It's all black and white truth and and lies, and she wants to tell nothing but the truth. And so they have a lot of followers because of this. They have a lot of followers because Sean is a little bit crazy, being an Irwin. And yeah, so they've got this really great dynamic, those two. And I found a lot of the other characters to be really interesting. The presidential candidate is really interesting. There's a character called Buffy who's got a very clear personality, and we kind of get to meet more and more some of the people that are working for, as the series goes on, some more people that are working for and with Sean and Georgia. And as the series goes on, you really get to learn more about a lot of people around them. The first book really focuses on those two. The second book also does. The first book really focuses on Georgia's perspective, and the second book really focuses on Sean's perspective. And through that, you really get a sort of interesting shift in focus. The first book really focuses on their story following the campaign trail. The second book really follows a lot of the other characters, and we get to see a lot involving them there. It's a great cast of characters, I feel like. And the third book kind of leads everything off on a crazy ride of uncovering a bunch of things. There's a lot of previously undiscovered things happening in the background of this world, having to do with this virus that a lot of people aren't aware of. And being newsies and being into the news and stuff, they're very much trying to find themselves in situations where they can uncover things like this. And yeah, there's some really great ideas happening here. I did find it to be rather entertaining to read. I always have a hard time with books that use like internet lingo or computer lingo, or insist that someone is like a computer expert or a technology expert, like one of the characters is. And just this world of heavy technology used in a future world with these zombie virus infection kind of thing. It's sort of cringy to me sometimes still when I hear people talk about this kind of stuff. And I feel like Maya Grant does do it sort of well some of the time, when she's not focusing on it too heavily, but when she really tries to get into the technical side of things, I feel like it suffers. But overall, they are entertaining books to read. I would definitely say the first book was my favorite. The second book was still pretty good. Sean's perspective is a little bit more ridiculous than Georgia's perspective. And he's kind of a very angry person in this book, in the second book, and kind of just threatens to punch people all the time and does punch walls and things all the time. He's very aggravating to read from the perspective of. He's a little bit more unreliable than the first book, where Georgia is narrating, because she is very reliable all the time. And some weird things are brought into question about them and who they are, and things the reader came to understand about them in the first book. And then the third book kind of lost me a little bit halfway through, but I still enjoyed it. Overall, it was definitely an entertaining and fun series to read. If you're looking for a zombie like infected series, then I would definitely suggest this, because they are quite a bit of fun and definitely not lacking in adventure and action. So I would highly suggest them if you are looking for books like that. Like I said, I did have fun listening to them. I feel like the audiobooks were a little bit lackluster just because they kept switching narrators a bunch, which is really annoying. I'm going to listen to the fourth book, which is apparently a kind of different perspective on what happens in the first book, which is something I'm not sure if I'll like or not. We'll see. I'm not even sure what character it follows. I haven't started it yet. I'll start it tomorrow, I guess, and we'll see where it goes. I'm not entirely sure how I'll feel about it, reading the same kind of story but from a different perspective. Like I said, I don't know who the perspective will be. Don't know what it'll actually be following, but hopefully I like it. We'll see. I probably would give the trilogy as a whole like a 3.5 stars if I were to give it a star rating, which I know helps some people. I would give it a 3.5. It was definitely enjoyable. Not the best thing ever, but definitely enjoyable. And then after I finish feedback, I'm going to listen to Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. Except for I do own the mass market paperback for this. We have a lot of, Giselle and I have a lot of her books in mass market paperback. And so what I'm going to do is actually kind of switch back and forth between reading this, the physical edition, and the audiobook edition. Giselle actually does that pretty often. It works for her. I'm going to give it a shot and see what I think of doing it. Maybe I'll bring this book to work with me. And sometimes I can listen to it while I'm just doing work, and on my break and stuff, I can pull it out and read it. If I feel like I want to read it at home later, I can take it out and read it at home. We'll see. I want to kind of see how that works for me. I'm not sure. I really want to get into Robin Hobb's stuff, but I haven't necessarily had the time to pick up her physical stuff on its own. So maybe if I'm transferring back and forth between the audiobook and the physical book, then I can do that. It should be hopefully a fun time in general, because I'm really looking forward to finally reading some Robin Hobb. And then as for other physical stuff, I did not get a chance to start Star's End. I'm going to start tonight. It's a space opera science fiction story that follows this main character, this girl who has been raised her whole life to take care of this corporation surrounding a sort of planetary system. And she kind of has to deal with whether she actually wants to follow through with that, or if she wants to go off and do her own thing. And so I'll see how I feel about it. I'll definitely do a review of it. It actually just came out today. No, it came out. This one was one that came out last week on the 21st, I think. So it's been out for a week. I'm a little bit late, a little bit behind, but I'm hoping to get to it tonight and finish it within the next couple days. So we'll see about that. And then after that, the only other thing that I plan on definitely trying to pick up and finish is Red Sister by Mark Lawrence. This one looks like a lot of fun. This is the first thing that I'm actually ever going to be reading from Mark Lawrence. Even though some of his other stuff does seem interesting to me, this is the first thing that I've decided to really pick up from him. It's his newest book, comes out April 4th, so next week. And I'm hoping to post a review before it comes out or around the time that it comes out. We'll have to see. But this is a brand new series and a brand new world, so I think it's a great place to start with his stuff. Hopefully it is. And I'm really hoping to enjoy it. I had a lot of high hopes for it. I've heard a lot of good things about it already. It's about this young girl who's at this convent of Sweet Mercy, I believe, where girls become Red Sisters. They learn the ways of like the art of death, and she has already been accused of murder before. And there's a lot of stuff happening with her past, and she's kind of learning how to hone her skills and has to deal with the different politics happening in this world as she grows older and stuff. So hopefully it'll be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it. Hopefully it'll be a good start to a good series. We'll see. I'll definitely let you know. I'm going to do a review of it. So anyway, that's it. That's everything that I wanted to talk about. Hopefully I'll be able to get to everything, maybe even a little bit more. I'm not sure. We'll see. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you've read any of the stuff that I've mentioned today, I would love to hear your opinions on it. Definitely share them with me. I would love to talk about them. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you later with more.